Shalom Aleichem, everybody. This week's Parsha, Parshas Vayero, starts with the Pasuk, Vayero Elov Hashem be'Eloinei Mamrei, V'hu Yoshev Pesach ha'oihel k'choim hayoim. Avram Avinu had just had his bris milah. It was the third day after his bris milah, which we learn is the most difficult day in terms of the pain and the recovery. So Hashem made a very, very hot day, choim hayoim, that there shouldn't be any traveling, any people coming past, any wayfarers, because Avram Avinu, as we know, was famous. He used to sit at the door of his tent, which was open from all sides, the tent of Abraham, and he used to wait for any opportunity to do the Mitzva of Hachnasat Orchim, of welcoming guests into his tent. And Hashem knew that he was going to be particularly struggling with the recovery from the bris milah. So made very hot, there shouldn't be any visitors. And Hashem came to visit him. Rashi tells us Hashem was mekayim the mitzvah of bikur cholim, just so we know how important visiting the sick is. Anyway, what happened? Hu Yoshev Pesach ha'oihel k'choim hayoim, because notwithstanding that Hashem came to visit Avram Avinu, he was still sitting at the door hoping and praying that maybe a visitor will come past his tent so he'll be able to welcome him in. And God saw that Avram was so upset that there weren't any travelers because it was hot. So Hashem sent the angels, and straight away it says, V'hinei shloisha anoshim nitzovim olov. Suddenly there were three men standing above him. And Avram Avinu was so happy that finally there were some guests who he could welcome into his tent. It says, Vayorotz likrosom mi pesach ha'oihel. He ran to greet them. So it's a beautiful thing. The question is asked. The Torah, we know, doesn't waste any words. It told us in the first pasuk that Avram Avinu was sitting pesach ha'oihel at the door of the tent. In the very next pasuk, it says that when he saw those men, Vayorotz likrosom mi pesach ha'oihel. He ran to greet them from the door of the tent. And we know that he was sitting at the door of the tent. He just told us 2 seconds ago. And the fact that the Torah doesn't waste any words means that we have to learn something from this, that it repeated that he ran from the door of the tent. So my uncle Leiby, who I've spoken about in previous posts, who used to, every week I used to say Good Shabbos and hear a Dvar Torah from him. He offered the following insight. He says, we know that there's a custom in Judaism that when you're going to do a mitzvah, you go quickly. It's called zrizin makdimin lemitzvah. You know, if you have an opportunity to do, you do it as soon as you can in the morning. Vayashkem Avraham baboiker. You wake up early, you do the mitzvah. When we go to shul, we walk with a spring in our step because we're happy we're going towards doing a mitzvah. At the same time, when we're leaving a mitzvah, we go slowly because we walk away. We're sad in a way to leave the mitzvah. And so when people are leaving shul, for example, they walk slowly because they're sad to be leaving the place of worship and from leaving the mitzvah. Very nice. It's a lovely custom. The question is asked, what do you do if you're going from one mitzvah to another mitzvah? On the one hand, you have to leave one mitzvah slowly. And on the other hand, you have to go to the next mitzvah quickly. It's a good question. So actually, the custom is a very logical answer. You go halfway slowly, and then the other half towards the next mitzvah, you go quickly. Fair enough. However, there's an exception to this rule. The exception is that if you're going to a bigger mitzvah, you're going to do something which is more choshuv, then you can go quickly the whole way. And now we can understand the meaning of Vayorotz likrosom pesach ha'oihel. Avram Avinu was being visited by Hashem. It's a mitzvah of Kabbalas Pnei Shekhina. God himself was sitting there visiting him, but nonetheless, as soon as he saw the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Hachnasat Orchim, he ran straight away from the door of his tent. And the Torah went to great lengths to tell us that. Therefore, we can deduce that the mitzvah of Hachnasat Orchim is even bigger than Kabbalas Pnei Shekhina, from the fact that Avram Avinu ran from the door of his tent. And it's true, the amazing welcoming feeling that you can give someone when you welcome them into your house and offer them a drink, offer them a meal, offer them a warm shoulder, is priceless. And on that note, I'd like to, in all of my Divrei Torah here, I always quote various uncles who used to give me amazing Divrei Torah all the time. My father, Avi Moiri, is known to be a great chazan. He's less known to be one who's full of Divrei Torah. I will never forget a Dvar Torah that he told me when I was a young boy. It says in the Parsha, V'hinei shloisha anoshim nitzovim olav. When Avram Avinu was upset that there weren't any guests, suddenly there were 3 men standing above him. And this was, of course, before he had the opportunity to welcome into their house. He was sitting at the door of his tent, physically, and they were standing above him because they were traveling. But after he had the opportunity to welcome them in, and Avram Avinu ran and he told Sarah to start preparing, and he started preparing food. And once he had the opportunity to feed the guests and to welcome them into his tent, it says, V'hu oimed aleihem tachas ha'etz vayochelu. That he, Avram Avinu, was standing above them, tachas ha'etz vayochelu. And also literally, now they had a chance to wash their feet and sit down, and he was serving them, so now he was standing up. What my father told me was that in a spiritual sense, in a level of holiness, before he had the opportunity to fulfill their Hachnasat Orchim, these were angels. They were on the madrega, on the highest possible madrega of angels, and therefore they were nitzovim olav. They were ranking above him in spirituality. But the essence of performing the Mitzva of Hachnasat Orchim lifted Avram Avinu up above the madrega of Malachim even, such that V'hu oimed aleihem, he had risen up above them in a madrega, which goes to show us how true it is that Gedola Mitzvahs Hachnasat Orchim yoser mikabolas pnei Shekhina.